that legacy.
That's where we'll leave Ashleigh Gillon's speech to the Financial Services Council in Sydney. If you'd like to keep watching the Prime Minister, you can do so. Just press red and watch Sky News Business Channel 602. Good morning and welcome to AM Agenda. I'm Ashleigh Gillon. WikiLeaks has struck again, angering the Australian government by releasing hundreds of US embassy cables the Attorney-General claims could be potentially dangerous. Newspapers of today splashed with photographs of some of the 23 people whom ASIO and the US State Department deemed a possible terror risk. Those named are mainly accused of having links to extremist figures in Yemen. But several people identified in the cable have denied those links, saying the allegations are completely unfounded. The government's standard policy is not to react to specific information contained in WikiLeaks cables, but the Attorney-General, Robert McClelland, has moved to reassure Australians that authorities are working with our international partners to identify and mitigate threats. Even so, he says the publication of any information that could compromise Australia's national security or inhibit the ability of intelligence agencies to monitor threats is incredibly irresponsible. Joining me this morning on our panel of politicians, the Labor MP Amanda Rishworth and the Liberal MP Josh Frydenberg. Good morning to both of you. Amanda, let's start with you. Considering the Attorney-General's reaction to this, do you think it was irresponsible for some newspapers to go ahead and publish the names of those people identified on that security list?
Well, look, decisions of what newspapers publish are up to them, but what the Attorney-General has clearly said is that previously WikiLeaks has not published people's particulars, and we have, as the government, clearly condemned any publication of any material that would put at risk our national security. So we have said in the past that publishing indiscriminately thousands of documents, many thousands of documents, is irresponsible. But certainly previous to this there hasn't been individual names and individual particulars. Obviously this has not been the case this time, and certainly anything that puts our national security at risk, anything that inhibits, as you said, intelligence agencies to monitor certain people of interest, really we have condemned in the strongest possible way. Josh
Frydenberg, how concerned are you about the release of the names on this list? Are you worried, is the Coalition worried that it does compromise national security?
Well, look, I don't mind reading a WikiLeaks cable which describes leading government minister Senator Conroy as loathing his own Prime Minister. That's a little entertaining. But when it comes to cables that compromise national security, that is of major concern. But it does give us an important reminder about the domestic terrorist threat that Australia faces. We need to be conscious of the fact that in Australia there have been a number of foiled terrorist attacks, that people have been convicted for such attempts, and that more than 100 Australians have been killed in terrorist attacks overseas since 9/11. It is an ongoing threat, but I have great confidence in our domestic intelligence agency, ASIO, together with the Australian Federal Police, to handle these in the appropriate manner.
Yeah, as you say, Josh, there are obviously different scales of this information in terms of national security. Some of it, as you say, seems to just be gossip that we often hear around the halls of Parliament House. One of the less damaging revelations this morning is one that the Australian newspaper has reported. It says that the Rudd government wanted bigger interest rate cuts during the global financial crisis, and it suggests that there was quite a rift between the Reserve Bank over it. The 2009 cable shows that the bank thought that overly aggressive cuts to interest rates were unnecessary. Instead, the bank was putting its faith in China's recovery, convinced that it would save Australia from a recession. Josh, those tensions between the government and the RBA in what was, let's face it, pretty tense economic times, they're not damaging to Labor, are they? If anything, the government would probably like to be viewed as being seen to be overly cautious and not doing enough.
No, I think they are damaging. I think it shows, again, that the government doesn't understand the independence of the Reserve Bank, which is absolutely critical in our financial system. So these are important revelations. I mean, the point here is that the government has spent money wastefully, billions and billions of dollars. That puts upward pressure on interest rates. So they should look at their own house before they start throwing stones at others, I think.
Amanda, some Labor MPs have recently criticised the Reserve Bank for its current interest rate debt stands. Do these sorts of tensions that we've read about in the Australian this morning still exist between the government and the RBA?
Well, look, I'm not going to comment on the WikiLeaks documents, but in general, we've reasserted many times the independence of the Reserve Bank. But if we want to talk about the government's economic credentials and the government's response to the global financial crisis, what I think really the facts speak for itself. In terms of as a developed nation, we are in the best position possible. We did not go into recession, unlike developed.
Debt, Amanda, you were given no government debt.
Unlike any developed countries in the world. We had the same, going into the global financial crisis, we had the same unemployment rate as America, and now we have half of that, half the unemployment rate of America. Developed countries around the world. The developed countries around the world are looking at Australia with envy, and I think the facts speak for itself that that it was this government that rode through the global financial crisis. Our fiscal policy was working with monetary policy, and we've now come out of it in a position where we now can strongly move towards the future as we move to have an important transformation in our economy.
Okay, well, coming up after the break,
Josh,
we did hear your take on the government's handling of the economy. Now, I'm going to give you another chance after the break, because we are going to look at how the government's handling the crisis in the manufacturing sector. So do stay with us. We'll be back very shortly.
Come back from your next holiday with stories worth sharing.
Cleaning those annoying greasy stains, especially on plastic containers, can be really frustrating. But Finish All-in-One's new formula contains stain-fighting agents that now dissolve 3 times faster. This means the active ingredients have more time to help tackle those annoying stains. Now you can have the confidence of knowing that all your dishes will come out amazingly clean thanks to new Finish All-in-One. Brand power, helping you buy better.
This October, Australia will host the biggest event on the international business calendar, one you can't afford to miss. The Commonwealth Business Forum is a rare chance to network with global CEOs, heads of government and ministers on trade and investment opportunities worth millions to your business. An exciting lineup of speakers includes Professor Nouriel Roubini, Professor Edward Prescott and others. Register today at cbf2011.com.
Like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose.
I try to make the most of every moment with my family, but the reality is we just don't know what tomorrow could bring. That's why I've also prepared for their financial future with Guardian Life Insurance. I was able to select up to $1.5 million life insurance cover, and I could also get cover for my wife and children on the same policy. I applied over the phone in minutes, and I'm covered worldwide 24/7. Give Guardian a call on 1300 71 2508 for an obligation-free quote.
Welcome back. Yesterday, the Prime Minister visited BlueScope steel workers in the Illawarra. While she was there, she ruled out holding an inquiry into the future of the manufacturing sector. Here are a few of the comments from yesterday about that issue.
In yesterday's meeting, which myself and Dave and Heather read out from the AI group were at, the Prime Minister made it very clear to us that she was open to looking into some type of future inquiry into the future of the manufacturing industry. The words that were said by various government ministers this morning was a surprise to me.
My focus is on action. I don't want to be held back from acting by an inquiry which would inevitably take some time.
At the moment, Australian manufacturing is in one of its worst situations it's been in ever.
I think it's premature, I think it could be economically irresponsible, and I think it's politically dumb.
I'm sure Doug would also agree with the proposition that we don't want to be held up by having an inquiry.
I think that it's important that we don't make a bad situation worse with this carbon tax. This is the worst possible time to hit Australian manufacturing with a big new tax that will impact on our manufacturing, but not on the manufacturing of our competitors overseas.
Last night on the Perrott Report on Sky News Business, Ed Husick, the Labor MP, gave Doug Cameron some support on the issue of holding an inquiry into the manufacturing sector.
I'm the Secretary of the Caucus Economics Committee, and I know that the people that turn up to those meetings will be very interested to hear why an inquiry that can't look at where we're headed and where the sector could actually go, depending on what we do. I think it will generate interest, and I certainly intend to follow it up too.
Okay, so you're with Senator Cameron that the belief seems to be that it's been dismissed too quickly. It was brushed away. So are you looking for an explanation on why there's no inquiry?
Yeah, and why we don't see, given the circumstances that are confronting the sector and are quite radically different to what's confronted the sector in the past. I can't see why we would not be looking at taking a hard look at where we're going to head on it.
Josh Frydenberg and Amanda Rishworth are with me on our panel of politicians this morning. Amanda, just how widespread is the unease within the caucus about how the government is handling the challenges facing the manufacturing sector?
Well, look, of course there is concern that people have when jobs are lost, and I think we've seen that right across from the Prime Minister down. There is concern when jobs are lost, and we need to jump into action, and that's exactly what we have done in the situation of BlueScope. But we haven't been sitting on our hands when it comes to actually looking at how we make sure that the manufacturing sector is sustainable and strong into the future. And the innovation agenda that has been outlined by Minister Carr, including a new car plan for a greener future. I mean, there's been a number of different programs, the Enterprise Connect program, enabling businesses to get some advice about how they take their innovative business further. All these things are critical, ensuring that manufacturing is strong into the future. Now, let's be clear, we've been providing support here. The Liberal Party's just been planning to rip that support away.
Well, let's ask Josh about the Liberal Party's handling of this issue. Josh, there's a headline in the Daily Telegraph today, and I'll quote it: Abbott facing Lib revolt. It says that senior Liberal frontbenchers have privately threatened to withdraw support from Tony Abbott if he continues down a protectionist economic policy agenda. This follows that speech in Melbourne on Monday, which I know you were at. How worried are your colleagues about the way Tony Abbott's been handling this and the perception that he's going down a populist route?
Look, Tony Abbott is handling this very well, and if you look at the details of that CETA speech, he said we needed to argue against, he specifically said we need to argue against protectionism patiently and rationally. Now, look, the government has sat on its hands while manufacturing is in crisis, and now Julia Gillard has a caucus revolt on her hands. The fact is that there is a steel industry advocate position that lay vacant for more than 9 months. The fact is that the Steel Industry Innovation Council did not meet for 6 months and was not properly consulted on the compensation package for manufacturing. More than 100,000 jobs have been lost in manufacturing in the course of this Labor government.
And
this
Josh,
is a crisis. This is a crisis.
In February, Tony Abbott announced he would pull $2 billion out of assistance to help manufacturing transform. The first thing that he went for was
the carbon tax is what is going to kill manufacturing. And if you don't believe so, you've got your head in the sand.
That just suggests that you don't understand about
I think we're all talking over each other, and that's not helping at all. I do need to cover off very quickly on a final issue, Amanda. We've only got a few minutes left, and I do really want your take on the High Court ruling. Of course, the High Court's been looking at the government's Malaysia deal. We'll find out whether or not the High Court gives this deal a tick this this afternoon at about 2 o'clock, and we'll bring that decision to you, of course, here on Sky News. Amanda, if the High Court rules against the government, how big a blow is it going to be?
Well, look, the government will obviously wait for the decision of the High Court. We expected legal challenges to occur, and that has occurred. We believe that we are in a strong legal position with this case. There's been some precedent set before, and so we do believe that we are in a strong legal position. But we are determined, this policy, along with a number of other of our policies, we are determined to break the people smuggling model. So, look, we will see what the High Court has to say today, but of course we believe we're on strong ground, and we will continue to ensure that our policies are designed to stop people from taking that dangerous journey on boat.
Josh Frydenberg, could the decision have implications as well for the Coalition's Nauru policy?
Look, the so-called Malaysia solution has been absolutely a disaster. It was announced before there was any agreement. It was on the back of the East Timor solution that never eventuated. More than 10,000 people have come in an unauthorised manner under the Labor government. When Julia Gillard was in government, Ashleigh, she said another boat, another policy failure. Well, there have been more than 200 policy failures on her watch, and again they have no solution.
Josh, we are running out of time. I do just want to play something for our viewers. I know I mentioned that you were at that speech with Tony Abbott in Melbourne the other day. He gave you a pretty big compliment while he was there. Here is it for our viewers if they might have missed it on Monday.
It's nice to have someone in the parliamentary party who understands foreign affairs at last.
Josh Frydenberg, it's a big compliment for you, but what did that comment say about the Shadow Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop?
Look, she's doing a fantastic job, and I think Tony was making a joke about Kevin Rudd, and that just sort of got completely misinterpreted. So Julie Bishop is doing a brilliant job as our Shadow Foreign Affairs spokesman, will be a great Foreign Minister in an Abbott government, and may I say, Australia's first ever female Foreign Minister.
Amanda Rishworth, we were joking in the break. Please go ahead.
Well, look, if the Liberal Party, they don't have an economic policy, they don't have a policy to tackle greenhouse gases, but at least with Josh there, they might develop a foreign policy. So I certainly will be watching this space, but I think Tony Abbott's got to get on with the job and actually develop some policies that we can have a debate about in this country.
Okay, Amanda Rishworth and Josh Frydenberg, we appreciate your time on the program as always. Thank you for your company this morning.
Thank you.
And we do have plenty coming up today. As I mentioned, that High Court decision is going to be announced at about 2 o'clock this afternoon. So we'll bring you that decision as soon as it does happen. Of course, it has real implications for those asylum seekers who have arrived since the Malaysia deal was announced. There are more than 300 people whose fate really does depend and is entwined with this High Court decision this afternoon. On PM Agenda this afternoon, David Spears is going to be speaking with one of the lawyers who has been pushing this case, David Mann, to get reaction from him after that decision is handed down. We're also going to have more politics this afternoon with David Lipson. He'll be hosting Lunchtime Agenda at 1:30 Eastern today. John Hewson and John Della Bosca will be among his guests. I'll be back with you at this time tomorrow. Until then, I'm Ashleigh Gillon. Thanks for your company.